Shabbat Shalom, Mishpachah. It is so good to come to you this Shabbat and to celebrate with you. I hope, it is my prayer, that you are getting the rest you need and will also find strength in this time in the presence of the Lord. I'm going to comment a little bit about the Parashat that is being read again around the world by Jews and Messianic Jews. This particular portion deals with it deals with women in a regular season of rest and restoration. It also deals with the aspects of how they're to deserve it or how they get a break during a certain time of the month that they deal with. And then the second part of the parasha this week deals with the community safety or community health with regards to tzara'at, the skin disease. It's sometimes, of course, in the King James Bible, and many Bibles since have translated it as leprosy. And you probably heard several issues I have with the King James Bible, and you hear that again, or the King James translation. You probably hear a little bit of that frustration again. I'm very grateful for the English translation. I'm very grateful that the men and women who sacrifice so much for the King James Bible to come into existence. But there are a few things about it that are somewhat frustrating for us today, not the least of which it wasn't enough to call it King James, but they also had to change several names, which would be Yachav in the Hebrew, or certainly during the time that it's making reference to Jesus' brother. They choose to change that name to James. And again, it is my understanding that was done out of respect or out of honor for the king who was authorizing the Bible to be translated. But I think when we do that kind of either political compromise or political adjustment, even to favor people who are rightly over us or been ordained to be over us in some way, something gets lost. And it is one of those things that it is disheartening, I think, to see that. But the reason I make mention of the book of James, or the epistle of James, which again is if we were really dealing with it being named after Yeshua's half brother, would be Yachav instead of James. There is a great deal of what I would say is correlation between the epistle that we know as James and the parasha that we're reading now. Many of the traditional and even ancient rabbis have commented on this portion. And when I'm saying this portion of the portion, I'm not referring necessarily to the break or the time of restoration and rest that was afforded women who were experiencing the time of month that comes upon them. What I'm referring to is tzara'at, which is the skin disease that is referred to as leprosy, or translated as leprosy so often in the scriptures, especially in relation to the King James. I'm speaking about that aspect of this portion, or the portion of the portion, simply because when we're referring to, or when the rabbis were looking at this, the ancient rabbis, they made a comparison between the use of our tongue as slander, or the use of our tongue for evil purposes and even gossip. And they looked at this as how it would be treated, how we would treat sin as something that should be separated from the community until the disease of sin, this particular sin, was repented of, and they no longer practiced it. So there is this comparison that is seen here between the skin disease and the quarantine that would be required to deal with the skin disease, a skin disease that would be spreading, and the idea of how they should deal with slander or gossip or malicious statements about somebody else, false statements, even more directly, and how those people should be isolated, or at least the act should be isolated. It should be something that is treated as an infection that could spread into the community. And I thought that was interesting that you see in so many of the rabbinical texts this kind of reference to it. Now, dealing back with the beginning of the portion, when we're talking about the women being instructed to have this break, this being set apart, it's interesting to me that several of the Orthodox women who still desire to observe this, or who do observe this in their family, they get a break from everything during this period of time. They get to, they really kind of are sent away. One described it as kind of having a bit of a spa, few days of being at a spa, because they separate themselves and having no responsibility in the home, being able to truly rest apart from the duties that would normally befall the woman in the household, at least during this time. And they would get this break, and then there would be the time of purification through the mikvahs, or the warm tubs that have been set out for them for cleansing purposes. And some of the Orthodox women who have commented on this, and usually if I'm hearing the comment, I'm hearing it through their husbands or through the rabbi, but they talk about the fact that this is, kind of like a time of pampering. Now, I'm sharing all this with you because I thought, what an interesting thing that it seems like we've lost through the years by not desiring to observe the things that God had ordained to be observed. And not only do we see that in the Shabbat, where there's not the time of rest, but we see that also in these seasons in which the normal cycle for women is occurring, and there isn't the kind of this idea of pampering or setting apart, and I think of that of course in relationship to how Messiah, when he was ministering here on earth. Now, I know he's still ministering here on earth, so it's a little bit of inaccurate language there, but as he was during the time of the gospel record, as he was ministering, one of the things that he said that we would be known by was our love for one another. And I think about that in context of how do we love one another? How does the world see that our love for one another is somehow different than everybody else? Now, we may have different ways in which we would even scale or gauge that, measure that. But I think it's worth the challenge for us to consider, how does the world really see us loving one another? How do they see us responding in love to one another? I was thinking about this in relationship to the Apostle Paul's instruction to the church at Philippi, where he instructed them to speak encouraging words, words of life, and words of wholesome words that extended life and were encouraging, and spiritual psalms and things that built up one another rather than tearing one another down. And I believe that when it comes to areas of, for instance, congregational or church growth, what we first have to show is that we love one another. That's the type of thing that attracts others to us. They want to be a part of that church. They want to be a part of that congregation in the way that they are loved, or the way that they see that believers love one another. And there is just this natural sense of wanting to be a part of that. And I think that when it comes to that particular aspect of where church growth is, and I know that there is a lot of there are a lot of books and research is being done on the area of church growth But I think what it really comes down to, if we could establish that the way we love one another is so outstanding in comparison to the way that the world tends to care for one another, or the way that the world tends to perhaps express emotion. If we showed our love indeed to one another, and that was a priority in everything we did, I got a feeling that church growth would just be something that would supernaturally happen just because of the way we are with one another. Well, that's all I really have on the parashah today, but I hope that these things are, this portion of the portion, and even a little bit of the conversation is well worth your time. This, by the way, came from Leviticus chapter 12, verse 1 through chapter 15, verse 33, the way that we have it broken down. This actually includes two portions. One of them, Masorah, and the other one relates to the conception, or the preparation for conception. But the name of it is Mitzorah. I'm sorry, let me say it right. I said I gave you the wrong name. It is Tazria, or Tazria. It is it relates to, or translates, she conceives. And I think that there is something to the way in which God instructed the children of Israel to, in a very real way, pamper their wives, pamper the women, to take care of them, that was in such contrast to what we would have seen in the other cultures surrounding them, and especially that they were coming into. So this is the 28th parashah, and it is combined with Mitzorah, which is the parashah reading, the 28th parashah reading, that deals with persons who are afflicted with tzara'at, which is the skin disease. So I think that even though the parashat are read together in this particular season, and leap years they're read apart or separate, they are certainly two different sections, and I think people oftentimes misinterpret somehow that the purification that was given women, as opposed to the type of cleansing that was necessary because of tzara'at, which would be the communicable disease, and somehow they see that as paralleled, or that somehow that the women were looked less upon. And that's just not true. As I say, even today, among women who practice this, see this as a season of, or who seek to honor these instructions, see it as a season of pampering. They see it as a season of, or a time of getting a break from all other responsibilities. So, I guess if anything, I can end this message on Shabbat, on this beautiful Shabbat. I can end this message with saying, men, take some time to catch up on the pampering. Take care of your wives, your daughters, your friends. Take care of them. Pamper them. Give them a break. And certainly bless them in this time. And I would say of that my desire is that you would all be blessed. Now may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom.